Hi, and welcome to the intro episode of I Heal, We Heal podcast. I'm your host, Melissa, and I'm thankful you're here. This project means a lot to me. It is me honoring the holistic cancer healing journey that I've just finished up, and I'm really excited to now be able to share the experiences and reflections that this experience has brought me. I'm passionate about sharing everything because I know that others may resonate with it or may be sitting in the spot that I was a year and a half ago, where the cancer diagnosis didn't really align with anything that I had going on at the time or what I thought my life path was going to be for the next year and a half. And so definitely excited that you're here and joining me on this. And I guess it wouldn't be an intro episode without me sharing a little bit about that journey. Early 2023, I found a small lump on the left side of my neck. It was not very large. It was probably like a couple inches. And I remember getting blood work and a biopsy done shortly after finding it. And it came back as Hodgkin's lymphoma. And it's pretty early stages. It was positive for cancer. So I got a PET scan done maybe a couple weeks after that to see exactly where it was. And I remember going to the PET scan results and the oncologist wanting me to start, chemo as soon as possible. He's like, oh, well, you can start as soon as next week. And I remember chemo just not sitting right with me. I was like, I don't want to put my body through that. I don't want to go through that. It's just not sitting right with me. I remember going home and researching absolutely everything. I was researching cancer diets, treatment options, other testimonies. This is when I found other people that were healing cancer using alternative methods, different modalities, different diets, and everything like that. And I was like, if this is possible for other people, then this is possible for me. And so I remember telling the oncologist, I'm not going to go through with chemo right now. It's just not aligning with me, and I'm choosing to go the alternative route. And I remember he just looked at me like I was crazy. And he's like, this is serious. This is you can die from this. Alternative therapies don't work for this. And I was like, okay, I appreciate your input, but it's definitely not aligning with me at this moment. That's where I'm choosing to go with it. And so I didn't go back. And first thing I did was start a raw vegan diet and a juice cleanse. So I was going from someone that, ate pretty much a little bit of everything to swapping to a raw vegan diet. It was pretty drastic for me. It was a pretty big change. I guess it was the first thing that I did for myself, but it was definitely the hardest, I think, to change, your whole diet from one day to the next, and it only be raw fruits and vegetables was tough. And so then shortly after that, I found a alternative medicine doctor, and that's where I started hypnotherapy, yoga, and Reiki. And these modalities opened me up to what energy healing was, what the chakras were. It was the first time, honestly, that I was stepping back and considering emotions and energy work. And it was wild because I, for the first time, identified that I had been operating out of the fight or flight mode. And if you're not familiar with it, it's basically where you're in survival mode and, you're in stress mode, just autopilot. This was definitely my first wake up moment. All right, you've been disregarding, your emotions and everything your whole life. And so this was where, little did I know, I'd be looking into everything, and I mean everything. And so then when May came around, I was graduating. That was grad season for me. I finished up my master's in cannabis science and business. And so we were out in Philly for that. And then by the end of May, to Mexico for a year. this is where I guess most of my healing embarked. I was able to do and involve myself in just modalities that weren't necessarily available to me here in Florida. And so one of the first individuals that I started working with was a shaman to identify the origin of these trapped emotions and ultimately what led to the illness. This is where I learned that certain events, like probably 1 to 2 years before the diagnosis, the catalyst for illness, and that this catalyst wasn't necessarily it. It was a recreation of traumas and trapped emotions that were already pre-existing, in my subconscious from childhood. And so I spent the summer doing a lot of inner child healing and just looking within and understanding and creating that relationship with the inner child, understanding why exactly it was that I was always in this high stress autopilot mode, the survival mode. And I guess the lack of emotional intelligence. Emotions are important and you need to process them and you need to know why triggers are triggers and everything like that. I'll definitely, be getting more into a lot of these different topics in later episodes. Here, I just kind of wanted to touch a little bit about the journey and what every step along the way kind of looked like. But yeah, I spent the summer doing inner child healing and stuff with biomagnetism, which is magnet therapy, working with the body's energetic field, pyramid therapy, which is something that I haven't been able to find here in the States, or at least not in Florida. It's basically where you sit in this huge pyramid in the center of it, and due to the shape of it and materials, with you sitting in it, it basically realigns you energetically, and through that induces healing. In October, my mom was visiting me, and we did a shroom ceremony called Niños Santos, which again, with this ceremony, I'll definitely have its own episode to go into the details of this ceremony. Basically, what I wanted to highlight with this one was a lot of lineage healing was done here, maternal lineage healing, to be exact. Definitely looking into a lot of the generational trauma that has been passed down the maternal line. And so that was a very, very powerful ceremony there. Opened my eyes to the impact that generational trauma has on who you are today and how you respond to the world. In December, I came across the Akashic Records. This was a whole other realm to me. The Akashic Records is basically like the soul Google. If you could ask, Google any question about yourself or a past life, the current relationships in your life, their connection to you or purpose in your life, absolutely anything associated to you and your soul, you can ask the Akashic Records. And it's a very, very interesting thing. Basically, out of my first session, I got insight what the next 6 months for me looked like and what healing during those next 6 months looked like, as well as a life path timeline, information into my current relationships. And something that in this session was super interesting to me because I hadn't even heard of this before, but he's like, you are going to be doing ayahuasca at some point in early 2024. And sure enough, the opportunity came to me to have that ayahuasca ceremony right before my birthday. I think it was the week before my birthday in March. And that is a whole other, ceremony that I will be doing a separate episode on because it was wild. It is ancestral medicine that is amazing for healing all types of things, but especially emotional work. And so I was very fortunate to have that experience in Bernal, Querétaro, while I was out there. And then that was in March. And then the following months after that pretty much wrapped up my healing journey. It was pretty amazing. In April, I was experiencing something that was pretty interesting. The tumors in my neck would basically swell and then last probably a week swollen, and the pain would be unbearable. And then they'd go back down, and then it would just repeat and repeat and repeat until I think it was probably mid-April. the right side of my neck got so swollen. And again, it lasted for about a week. At this point, I was used to this process, and except this time it ruptured. A little hole opened up and it started draining everything. Probably lasted for like a week while it was draining out. And then it healed up, and right after it, the left side of my neck did the same exact thing. It would swell, it would go back down. It would swell, it would go back down. It got so swollen, and then it ruptured, except this time it was a lot more. It was probably about 4 inches along my jawbone on the left side, so probably like from where my ear is, like to where my chin is at. And that whole part was just like ripped open. It was just draining absolutely everything. This time, the pain was so unbearable, like while it was healing, which it was pretty bad, like the first time, but this time, because it was open so much and like you could literally see in my neck, it was worse. So I did end up going to the ER, and I remember them telling me that it was infected and that I need to stay at the hospital. And I ended up staying for 15 days while they treated me for the infection. And it was during this time that I was at the hospital that they offered me chemo. What they did was they did a biopsy on my neck. So after they confirmed that the neck wasn't cancer, they did a biopsy of my armpit lymph node, and that one did come back still as Hodgkin's. That's why they'd offered me the chemo. I was like, well, I have trusted every modality up until this point, and every modality has brought me as piece to the puzzle. If it's time, let's go ahead and let's do it. I remember I got half of that cycle while I was in the hospital. It was 15 days. And then shortly after, I got the second half of the first cycle. And so it was after that first cycle that I got Bell's palsy. It was probably like that weekend right after my treatment. And I remember waking up one morning and half my face was paralyzed. The left side of my face, my lip wasn't moving. My cheek was frozen. I couldn't blink. I remember going to the ER again, and they're like, it's early onset Bell's palsy. And so I was like, oh, okay, so clearly my body is rejecting the chemo. It's not doing me right. I remember telling the oncologist, I'm not going to continue treatment until I get a PET scan. And so time went on, probably a few weeks before everything got approved and everything through insurance for me to get that PET scan. And during this time, I could no longer feel any lumps or bumps, where they once were. And so I'm like, all right, like, we're going to get this PET scan done. I was hoping all best. And so sure enough, I think it was early August, my PET scan done, and it came back clear. And so it was a surreal moment for me. And it's still taken time to just kind of sink in everything that I've been through in, the last year and a half. What they quoted me was like 6 to 8 cycles of chemo. And, after one cycle that I did of chemo was really like the last treatment that I did. During this time, I was continuing like my meditations and quantum healing, a keto diet at the very end. I believe I started that probably like in May of 2024. And so I've been on the keto diet for a few months to get my weight back up. It was pretty amazing, to be cleared out with a single chemo cycle. And I didn't even lose my hair or anything. So I'm still kind of processing everything. It's been a wild experience. And oh yeah, I did forget to mention, I did acupuncture for the Bell's palsy. And so I'm at a point now where I would say almost back at 100% with my face function. I think I did like 5 or 6 sessions of it so far. And so face function is almost back. I'm very, very grateful. One of the reflections I've had since identifying, I guess, the origins of this cancer was the need to speak my truth and my experiences. And so in me hosting this podcast now, I hope to honor that part of it. So I thank you for joining me on this. I hope to continue sharing everything that has been associated with this cancer journey. I would love to hear from you. Thank you.